Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Sometimes I think we're all good at making excuses for why we don't follow our dreams. And one of the many reasons that I record this show every day is that I hope somebody out there is listening to these inspirational stories that we get to hear every day and thinks to themselves, I'm going to follow my dream too. And today's guest is a great example of that, and I really hope that it goes on to inspire people listening. Because they arrived in the US as a refugee from the Soviet Union, and by the time he had paid his rent, had only $20 in his pocket and couldn't speak English. Here in 2017, his global empire, Computer Generated Solutions, or CGS, now employs more than 7,500 professionals located all over the world. It's an inspirational tech story, but I don't want to reveal any spoilers, so buckle up and hold on tight, and let me beam your ears all the way to New York so we can speak with Phil Friedman, founder, president and CEO of Computer Generated Solutions, who's going to share his unique and inspirational tech story. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Phil. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thank you very much, Neil. So my name is Phil Friedman, and I'm the CEO, president, and founder of a company called Computer Generated Solutions, CGS in short. We are a global technology company that I founded 35 years ago and involved in many different aspects of the technology business.
Now, one of the many reasons I love recording this show is every day I hear about real human stories from all over the world, and also how technology has transformed their lives and business. But when I first read your story that began as a Soviet Union refugee that arrived in the US way back in 1976, speaking almost no English but well versed in computers, and how you searched the help wanted section of a newspaper and landed a job at one of the oldest manufacturing companies in New York City, where you were praised and consulted for your computer skills, is truly inspirational. But against your wife's advice, and knowing you might be fired, you wrote a 4-page memo and pitched to your boss on backing a computer outsourcing company called CGS, and the rest is history. But can you tell me more about that beautiful and inspiring backstory that you've got there?
So you're correct, Neil, and your listeners probably recognize my New England accent. I wasn't born in the United States. And just to take you through my personal history, in 1976, I was among the lucky few that were able to leave the Soviet Union as a refugee and come to the United States. I stayed for 4 months in Rome, in Italy, being adjusted and being interviewed by United States consulate. And in 1976, arrived to the United States with $500 in my pocket in a dream. And just to make it a little bit more interesting, the first check I had to write was for $480 for rent. So it was 1 month's rent and 1 month's deposit. So I was left with $20 in my pocket. And I needed to think real quick, how do I support my family and how do I establish myself in my new found country? My background, educational background, is in electronic engineering. I have a degree as an electronic engineer. Spent 14 years in the military complex in former Soviet Union, building equipment for airplanes and submarines. And then I had a master's degree, and I graduated with a degree in economics and finance. So coming to United States, I needed very quickly to decide what I am going to do in my new country. Now, one of the requirements, obviously, when you live in the United States, it is to speak English. And I always joke about it, but I didn't realize how much I didn't. I thought I spoke English, but I didn't. So I had to go back to school. I enrolled in extensive course that was offered to Eastern European professionals that had a master's equivalent. And half a day every day I was studying English, and half a day I was studying computers. Had no intention, frankly, to be in the computer field because I didn't know much about it. And it was in very early stages at that time. But as luck have it, and you mentioned it in your introduction, I was sitting in the class going through the help wanted section of New York Times, because that was the place to find a job at that time, and came across a very small ad for someone looking for a programmer, a beginner, to enter the field of programming. And luckily, I was hired on the spot. Within 3 years, I was running an IT department in a major privately held manufacturing firm in the fashion industry. At that time, the computers were typically batch-oriented, nightly process computers. IBM came out with the very first online computer system. It was called System 38, and I'm dating myself now. And I was able to convince the owners of the company to buy this wonderful IBM computer. And we also bought a software product from a software company in California called ACS. After about 18 months of implementation and making it really work, I was entertaining a lot of potential customers of IBM. We've been a showcase account for IBM, and the software company ACS. And one morning I woke up and I said to myself, I am spending a lot of time giving out free advice. People traveled from all over the world to see this wonderful installation. It must be a business here. So you are right. I wrote a 4-page business plan. I still have it somewhere. And left one morning to meet my bosses with a brand new plan. And the plan was very simple. If they would allow me to take the 5 programmers that worked for me at that time and open my own business, and by the way, if they would agree to be my first customer, I will deliver same quality of service for half the price. And as you said, my wife was absolutely convinced that I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. I have a secure job. The bosses loved me, very secure, long-term engagement. Why do you need to risk everything and start this new business? And much to my surprise, the management of the company was supportive. And the reasons they've been supportive, obviously, cutting their costs in half was very attractive. But more importantly, they believed that Phil Friedman will be able to build a business. And one of the conditions was, we will allow to do this. We will become customers, but we want to be partners. And I didn't need much capital at the time. It was a labor-intensive business, but no much capital investment required. But I agreed. Took me 3 years to pay them out and really start growing CGS into a technology company as it is today.
It's a fantastic and inspirational story. It really is. I've got to ask, do you still remind your wife of that moment even now?
Oh, every time I have the opportunity to tease her, I do remind her. And at this point, very rarely does she admit that she didn't want me to start this business because, it's ancient history. But yes, it's no assurances when you risk everything and start your own business.
Absolutely. And today you're still CEO of CGS, which to my understanding is a global provider of business applications, enterprise learning and outsourcing services. But the company now employs more than 7,500 professionals across the world. So to help anyone listening visualize just what you've built here, can you offer an overview of exactly what computer-generated solutions is? and who it serves and what problems it solves?
Absolutely. So the company today obviously is very different from what it was 35 years ago and what I conceived in 1983 when I started the business. Our business primarily focused in three different areas, and I might add here that probably very few companies in the business, technology companies in the business today, execute on the same model that CGS does. And the reason I'm saying it is that most companies you find in the market is a single product or single service companies that's very well defined and very focused in one on the other markets. And it's very easy to describe those companies and probably in some respect easier to run those companies. CGS is different because we in several different businesses, but at the end of the day, I always say that we have one single product in this company. We sell solutions. We sell technology-enabled business solutions. And in our case, if I look at the three towers within the company, the first one is going back 35 years ago where I started. This is the software business. We call it the application solutions business. CGS owns several IPs. We are very prominent and probably the number one player in the fashion industry. And we do everything in the fashion industry, starting from a product design with our PLM product, manufacturing, distribution, importing, advanced logistics, all the way to financials. So it's nothing that a fashion-oriented company would need in terms of software that CGS doesn't provide. And we have a great following, customers in 45 countries using our product. So we accomplished a lot and we are a leader in this field. The second part of our business is in the area of e-learning. Many years ago, we acquired a small company in Canada, and we built it up today to be one of the leaders in e-learning. And this is advanced avatar-based, gaming-based learning. It's level 3, level 4 development. And we train employees of some of the largest companies in the world. So typically our customers are Fortune 5,000 type of accounts where they need massive retraining of the employees, either on technology or internal processes. And CGS delivers not only domain expertise, but also the technologies that allows them to advance and train their employees. Because as you probably know, the old methodology where everyone was taken to a hotel in a conference room and, people flew in from all over the world and you had to pay for hotel and pay for travel is no longer affordable. Companies are large companies and they constantly need to reinvent themselves, and we're helping them in that process. We also do, as part of this initiative, we do channel enablement, where for large technology companies, we manage their business partners. And this is a very unique business. Very few companies in the world do it and do it successfully. And CGS is very successful in doing support for some of the largest technology companies in the world. And last, the third tower of the business is business process outsourcing and ITO. This is information technology outsourcing. Today, we have 6 facilities in Chile supporting Latin America and US customers. We have 6 facilities in Europe supporting our customers in 22 different languages. We have 3 facilities in the United States. We have a facility in Israel, and we just launched a major technology support facility in Hyderabad. So in addition to, global software development facilities that we have today in many countries, we have a very wide web of technical support in BPO facilities, where, again, we support some of the largest companies in the world. That's the business.
So as someone that's enjoyed entrepreneur success, what are the top 5 skills that you think you need to be an entrepreneur that no business school can actually teach you?
So let me preface, this is a very good question, and I think it's very important to, especially the young listeners who look at the business world today and they see many of the top leaders of technology companies never graduated from college, and they might be thinking to themselves that, you know what, maybe I don't need to go to college. Maybe it's not important. So let me preface what I'm going to say by saying that college is important. The academic knowledge is very important. And today, if you run a business, you have to be able to read a P&L, understand a balance sheet. You need to understand the latest developments in marketing, because marketing today is not only an art, but a science. You need to be legally capable of understanding the legal challenges. You need to know the labor laws in many countries that you operate. But that's what you learn in college. And this is something that gives you the basis to operate. But certain things you cannot learn in college. And I think, I always say an entrepreneur has to have the fire in the belly, not to be afraid to make mistakes. I saw many people trying to start a business, but they afraid that they will not execute perfectly and they will make mistake. And that's not conducive to success. You have to be able to take chances, make decisions. I think if you ask me, again, they don't necessarily teach you in college that sometimes you have to make hard decisions despite the fact that you are not absolutely convinced that this is the way to go, because if you listen to arguments, you can go either way. Sometimes you have to listen to your gut feel. You have to trust your instinct. Another thing that I think is very important for any entrepreneur, to learn how to delegate. When I started the business in early days, I was absolutely convinced that I can do everything myself. And it takes time to realize that you need to hire good, smart people. You have to surround yourself with good people. And I know many people say that you need to find people that are smarter than you. And then that's probably very true, because you cannot be equally good in everything, and you have to be able to delegate. If you don't cross this barrier, you will never be able to grow a big business. And then, in my particular case, I strongly believe that you need to know, no matter how high you get on the ladder, you need to know what's happening in the business. Every Friday, I walk out of the office with about 40 reports from the field where I read them over the weekend, because I want to know what's happening in every part of my business. And Monday morning, for the 35 years I'm in business, every Monday morning, we have a management meeting where we go through every issue in the company, every opportunity. We go through sales, we go through delivery, we go through the quality issues, because that's the only way one can run successfully a modern, advanced business.
Wow, that's so refreshing to hear. Because like you said, it's a long time that has passed since those early days where you first started CGS. And you're right in what you're saying around surrounding yourself with smart people. But very often, the guy that started it all then drifts away and doesn't know what's happening in his own company. So I've got to ask here, what do you think the CEO's role is in, let's say, recruitment, and how they can best avoid bad hires that can make or break your business?
Neil, this is probably one of the most important challenges today and the most important roles a CEO has. Obviously, when you have, thousands of employees, it's hard to meet and interview every employee. But the top hires, people that set the direction, people that set the strategy and execution, I believe a CEO needs to be personally involved in evaluating, making sure that the culture of the company will be right, that the person understands and buys into your vision. And I personally take time to interview managers we bring on board. Yeah. And it takes an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours of initial interview. But many times I'm able to spot potential problems because the problems of a bad hire are very expensive. Typically when you hire someone who will not work out, it takes 3 to 6 months to realize that you made a bad hire. And the collateral damage that can be created by a bad hire, obviously you can't even estimate what it costs the company. And it's disruptive because if you need to replace an executive, it creates a lot of, anxiety in the company. So you have to spend time up front. You have to understand the alliance of targets, alliance of mission. Culturally, it has to be aligned. And I think any CEO that doesn't do it probably doesn't do justice to his company.
No, I completely agree. But let's expand on that. So when it comes to things like, let's say, mergers and acquisition deals, do you think the success lies in finding the right leadership fit or technology fit, or do you think it's a combination of the two?
You're asking a very good question. In some respect, every CEO, as the company grows, sooner or later has to deal with this question. Yeah. Now, in my view is that we obviously always looking for strategic fit of acquisition. And we made many acquisitions over the years. You need to make sure that whatever you acquire will be strategically aligned with the direction of the company. If you're buying IP, you need to make sure that it will be fully integrated and aligned with your IP and your direction in terms of expanding your offerings. But one critical element in any acquisition is the management team of the company you acquire. I believe that no acquisition should be made with the target of replacing the local management. I believe that in every country we participate in the business, we need to have local people managing local people. So, for example, in Chile, we have Chilean management, in Canada, Canadian management, in Romania, Romanian management, in Israel, in India, local management. I don't believe that I should be sending people from US to manage any operations in foreign land. Culturally, I think the reception and perception of the employees in local countries is much better if it's a local manager who understands the culture of the country, who can manage the people efficiently. And certainly, if we don't have the right management, for us to learn the business and put in someone from US to manage its business typically wouldn't work. So yes, I believe management is critical. I wouldn't buy a company if I don't like the management, no matter what product or what service they deliver. And thankfully, I can say that over the years, every time we bought a company, we kept the management and it was successful. We never had a bad acquisition.
Now, you did say a few moments ago as well, you were stressing the importance of college for the younger listeners that are listening today. But also, I've got to ask about STEM education. I mean, how much do you think subjects like science, technology, engineering and mathematics will be critical for future business leaders? Do you still think that's really important?
Neil, it is critical.
Yeah.
It's absolutely important because we live in a digital age. So if you don't have a basic understanding of STEM and you don't have STEM education, you will be struggling understanding where the whole industry is going. Just give you an example. In the fashion industry today, we witnessing a major revolution because omni-channel distribution changes everything. The traditional retail is going through a major restructuring today. So how do you manage a business if you don't understand the technology trends? Because in many instances, the Amazons, the Alibabas are setting the trend. And you need to understand how to deal with this technology. But since we're talking about STEM, with your permission, let me talk about another issue that is very important, and specifically for countries like United States today.
Yep.
I believe that STEM needs to be promoted and improved in our high schools. U.S. today suffers because we don't graduate enough computer engineers, software engineers. It's a major shortage in the country today. I am afraid that in a few years we will not be able to service our security and defense needs in this country, especially because you need citizens, U.S. citizens, to do this work. As compared, let's say, to India, when in India they graduate about 1.2 million every year. Yeah. We graduate in the United States less than 100,000 computer scientists and engineers, and we slowly started falling behind. So STEM is absolutely critical. It has to start in schools, but at the end of the day, if we don't pay attention to it, it will be very hard to sustain this tremendous movement and growth in the technology world.
It's a great point you highlighted there, and something that we seldom talk about, and I'm just really grateful that you have highlighted it today. And also, what technology do you think is fundamental to the success of CGS?
Well, as I mentioned to you, we have several products. We have very extensive intellectual property in the ERP, logistic, distribution. And since the market consistently changes, we constantly improving, adding, developing. We're spending a lot of money on R&D, and those technologies are very critical for future success of the company. We're also paying a lot of attention to what's happening in the global market and new technologies that entering the technology world. Obviously, artificial intelligence, it's here to stay. This is something that we will be working on very closely because improved productivity, tight labor market forces all of us to look at artificial intelligence. You read a lot about the new concept of blockchain. Yeah. This is the technology that is not going away. The only way I can stress the importance of it, like comparing it to the internet. When internet came around, few people recognize the importance and the revolution internet will create in the world. I think blockchain is one of those technologies that very quickly we will realize that most of the world's technology databases will be blockchain databases. This is very important. And we are trying to understand how do we adjust our products and services to take advantage of those great technologies emerging in the world.
So if we do have anyone listening that at the various stages of their own startup journey, what's the best advice that you could pass on, bearing in mind everything that you've learnt over the last 20, 30 years?
Well, I probably will be repeating myself by saying that anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur has to have this fire in his belly.
Yeah.
Has to understand that building a business is not a walk in the park. You will have challenges, you will have successes, and you will have failures. You have to take both of them and be able to overcome the challenges, because challenges is part of anything good that you can accomplish in the world. The truth of the matter is you have to have a vision, because in this vision probably will change with time. But one thing that you have to be absolutely committed to is the growth of your business, well-being of your employees, and making sure that whatever you do in your business, you do some good in the world.
Fantastic. Well, a huge thank you for coming on the show today. But before I do let you go, could I just ask you point the listeners in the direction of your website, where they can find you, your social channels, and also if they want to contact a member of your team, if they've got any other questions about what we've talked about today?
You certainly can find all the information about the company and what we do on our website. It's www.cgsinc.com. All the social media contacts, all the management contacts you can find on our website.
Well, again, a huge thanks for coming on today. When I think about your story there of arriving in the US in 1976 with $20 left after you'd paid for your rent, and now look at you now to where you employ 7,500 professionals across the world and this fantastic business that you've created, and also that you're still working from the ground up and know everything that's happening in your own company is incredibly inspirational. And I really do think that anyone listening, it would really inspire them to do something similar, and that is just priceless. So I really appreciate you for taking the time to come on and sharing that story today. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and it's an honor.
Phil was a fascinating person to talk with there, and I could have listened to his tales about his journey as an immigrant entrepreneur and the success that he's enjoyed all night. And I love how it wasn't just about growing a global empire, but he offered so many value bombs about how success lies in finding a leadership fit over a technology fit, and also the CEO's role in recruitment and how to avoid those bad hires that can actually make or break a business, and also the top 5 skills you need to be an entrepreneur that no business school can teach you, in his opinion. But equally, how he was quick to highlight the importance of STEM education and how critical it is for future business leaders. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about Phil's journey, and also where you listen to the show every day and what platform you listen to it on, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, etc. So take that phone from your pocket now and use it as an opportunity to send me an email to techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. But it's time for me to go now, and I will return tomorrow bright and early with another episode for you all. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.